Kate Morrison stood in the center of the tribunal chamber and felt the weight of 100 alien eyes on her. The room was massive, built to hold representatives from dozens of different species. Holographic screens floated in the air around her, displaying her service record, her mission reports, and the incident that had brought her here. She was the only human in the room. The lead judge, a tall Valoran named Admiral Thren, looked down at her from his elevated seat. His skin was pale blue, and his eyes had no pupils. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the chamber. Lieutenant Commander Kate Morrison, you stand accused of excessive force, destruction of property, and willful disregard of direct orders. How do you respond? Kate kept her voice steady. I saved 73 lives, sir. That was my priority. Thren's expression did not change. You destroyed mining equipment valued at 6 million credits. You ignored direct commands from your superior officer. You acted without authorization. The mine was collapsing, Kate said. There was no time to wait for approval. Those people would have died. Another judge, an insectoid creature from the Zenth Collective, clicked its mandibles. You used explosive charges in an unstable environment. Your actions could have killed everyone. But they didn't, Kate replied. Everyone survived. By luck, not skill, Thren said coldly. This tribunal has reviewed your entire record, Lieutenant Commander. This is not an isolated incident. You have repeatedly shown a pattern of aggressive behavior. You act on instinct rather than following proper procedure. You take unnecessary risks. Kate felt her jaw tighten. Humans are trained to adapt to changing situations. We respond to emergencies with quick decisions. Quick decisions that endanger others, a third judge added. This one was a floating jellyfish-like being, speaking through a translator. Your species is too violent, too unpredictable. You come from a Class 10 Deathworld, and you bring that aggression with you. The chamber filled with murmurs of agreement. Kate looked around at the sea of alien faces. Some looked curious, most looked disgusted or afraid. A communication screen appeared in the air, and Captain Greg Holland's face filled it. He was on Earth, transmitting from halfway across the galaxy. Permission to speak on behalf of the defendant, he said. Thren waved a hand dismissively. You may speak briefly. Captain. Greg's voice was firm. Kate Morrison is one of the best officers I've ever commanded. She makes difficult choices in impossible situations. That mining colony incident required someone who could think fast and act faster. A human was the right person for that job. Your bias is noted, Thren said. But this tribunal does not agree. Humans have been given opportunities to serve in the Galactic Fleet, and repeatedly, they have proven themselves too dangerous. That's not fair, Kate said, her voice rising. We've saved lives. We've served with honor. You have served with chaos, Thren replied. This tribunal has reached a decision. Kate's heart pounded. She expected prison, maybe deportation back to Earth. She had prepared herself for both. Thren stood, and the entire chamber fell silent. Kate Morrison, you are stripped of your rank and position in the Galactic Fleet. You will be transported to Krios 7, a Class 9 Deathworld, where you will remain for a period of no less than 90 days. Kate felt the blood drain from her face. Krios 7. She had heard of it. Everyone had. It was a planet where nothing survived. Expeditions sent there never returned. The Galactic Council used it as a dumping ground for failed equipment. You will be given standard emergency supplies, Thren continued. A beacon, food rations for 30 days, and a basic survival kit. You may activate your distress beacon at any time to request retrieval. When you do, you will acknowledge that human methods are inferior to proper galactic procedure. You're sending me there to die, Kate said quietly. We are giving you an opportunity to prove your claims, Thren said. You say humans can adapt. You say you can handle dangerous situations. Krios 7 will test that claim. If you survive 30 days, your sentence will be reconsidered. Kate looked up at him. And if I don't activate the beacon? Then you will remain there until you do, or until your supplies run out. Thren's expression was cold. We expect you will call for help within 72 hours. Most species do. The guards came forward, two large beings in armor. They placed restraints on Kate's wrists, not roughly, but firmly. She did not resist. As they led her out of the chamber, she heard Greg's voice calling from the screen. Kate, don't give up. You can do this. But then the connection was cut, and his face disappeared. The journey to the transport ship took 2 days. Kate was kept in a small cell with a narrow window. She watched the stars go by and tried not to think about what was waiting for her on Creo 7. On the morning of the 3rd day, a guard came to take her to the drop bay. The ship had entered orbit around the planet. Through the windows, Kate could see it below, covered in dark green forests and swirling storm clouds. In the drop bay, technicians loaded supplies into a small metal pod. It was barely large enough for one person. Kate watched as they placed containers of food, a water recycler, medical supplies, and the emergency beacon inside. One of the technicians, a reptilian alien with green scales, worked more slowly than the others. When the other technicians turned away, he slipped something extra into the pod. Kate caught his eye, and he gestured for her to stay quiet. His name tag read Quilvin. When the loading was finished, Quilvin approached her. I have seen humans do impossible things, he whispered. Prove them wrong. Thank you, Kate said quietly. There is extra water purification, more medical supplies, and a data pad in the hidden compartment under the seat, he said quickly. Good luck, human. Before Kate could respond, the other guards came to load her into the pod. She climbed inside, and they sealed the door. The space was cramped and dark except for a small control panel that glowed with amber light. She felt the pod detach from the ship with a metallic clang. Then the rockets fired, and she was falling toward Creo 7. The descent was violent. The pod shook and rattled as it hit the atmosphere. Warning lights flashed on the control panel. Kate gripped the harness straps and kept her breathing steady. Through the small viewport, she saw the surface rushing up to meet her, massive trees with strange metallic bark, rivers that looked more like acid than water, and mountains that belched smoke into the sky. The parachute deployed with a sharp jerk, slowing the pod's descent. Kate braced for impact. The pod hit the ground hard, tearing through branches and vegetation before finally sliding to a stop. Alarms blared inside the cramped space. Kate waited for the systems to stabilize, then hit the release button. The door hissed open, and hot, humid air rushed in. Kate took a breath. The air was breathable, but it was thick and smelled like metal and rot. She climbed out of the pod and looked around. The forest was like nothing on Earth. The trees towered above her, their bark gleaming like polished steel. Strange vines hung down, swaying even though there was no wind. In the distance, she heard sounds. Kate spent the first hour checking her supplies and securing the landing site. The pod had crashed into a small clearing, crushing several of the metallic trees. She pulled everything out of the pod and laid it on the ground to take inventory. 30 days of food rations, 1 water purifier, a basic medical kit, a multi-tool, fire starter tablets, emergency blanket, the distress beacon, bright red and impossible to miss. And thanks to Quilvin, she had extra water filters, more medical supplies, and the data pad. She looked at the beacon for a long moment, then put it at the bottom of her pack. The forest around her was alive with sound. Things moved in the branches above. Something large walked through the undergrowth nearby, heavy footsteps shaking the ground. Kate turned slowly, scanning the area. A creature emerged from the trees about 50 meters away. It was the size of a bear, but built like a reptile, with 6 legs and a mouthful of teeth designed for tearing flesh. Its eyes locked onto Kate. She did not run. Running triggered chase instincts in predators. Instead, she stood tall, made herself look bigger, and picked up a broken branch. The creature took a step closer, testing her. Kate banged the branch against the side of the pod, making a loud metallic sound. The creature flinched, then growled. She did it again, harder this time, and added a shout of her own. The creature backed away, confused by prey that fought back. After a moment, it turned and disappeared into the forest. Kate let out a breath she had not realized she was holding. "Okay," she said to herself, "that's how it is here." She spent the next few hours making the pod into a shelter. The landing had damaged it, but the hull was still intact. She sealed the door so it would open and close properly. She cleared the area around it, pulling away vines and vegetation. She marked the clearing with rocks so she could find her way back. By the time the sun began to set, Kate had a basic camp. It was not much, but it would keep her alive through the night. The forest changed when darkness came. The metallic trees began to glow with a faint blue light. Creatures that had been silent during the day started calling to each other. Strange insects flew through the air, leaving trails of light behind them, and the predators came out. Kate sat inside the pod with the door sealed. She had set up simple alarms around the perimeter using parts from the pod's electronics. Anything that crossed the line would make noise. She did not have to wait long. The first alarm went off at midnight. Kate looked through the viewport and saw something massive moving through the clearing. It was twice the size of the creature she had seen earlier, with armored plates covering its body and claws that looked like they could tear through metal. She called it an apex hunter. It was at the top of the food chain here. The creature circled the pod, sniffing at it. Then it struck, claws raking across the hull. The metal screamed but held. Kate grabbed one of the fire starter tablets and cracked it, then threw it out through a small vent. The tablet ignited when it hit the air, creating a burst of flame. The apex hunter jumped back, roaring. It had never seen fire before. Kate threw another tablet and another. The creature retreated, confused and angry. After a few minutes, it gave up and disappeared into the forest. Kate sat back, breathing hard. She pulled out the data pad and began to record. Day 1, night cycle. Creo 7 shows increased predator activity after dark. Local fauna appears to have no experience with fire. This can be used as a deterrent. Apex predator encountered approximately 4 meters in length, armored hide, highly aggressive. Recommend future expeditions bring flame-based defensive tools. She recorded everything she had seen. The metallic trees, the six-legged predators, the bioluminescent insects, the way the ecosystem operated on pure aggression. She added observations about gravity, air quality, and temperature. When she finished, she looked at the distress beacon again. According to the tribunal, she should be calling for help right now. She should be scared, desperate, ready to admit defeat. Instead, she felt calm. Kate connected the data pad to the pod's communication array. It was designed for emergency broadcasts, but it could also send data to the Galactic network. She uploaded her report and sent it. Survival Field Report Day 1, she said into the recording. Lieutenant Commander Kate Morrison, reporting from Creo 7. Initial assessment complete. Establishing sustainable camp position. Human adaptation protocols are proving effective. We'll provide regular updates. She ended the transmission and settled in for the rest of the night. The report reached the Galactic Network 6 hours later. It was automatically routed to the Tribunal Council, flagged as a transmission from Creo 7. Admiral Thren was in his office when he received the alert. He opened the file, expecting to find a distress call. Instead, he found a detailed scientific report. He watched the video Kate had recorded. She stood in front of the pod, the alien forest behind her, and calmly described the environment. She showed her camp setup. She demonstrated the fire tablets driving away a predator. She spoke like a researcher, not a prisoner. Thren felt something he rarely experienced: confusion. He called an emergency session of the tribunal. The other judges gathered in the chamber, and Thren played the report for them. "This is impossible," the insectoid judge said. "No one survives 3 days on Krios 7. She should be calling for rescue." "She is not asking for rescue," Thren said slowly. "She is conducting research." "Perhaps she does not understand the danger," another judge suggested. "She understands," Thren replied. "She fought off an apex predator. She knows exactly where she is." The report began to spread through the galactic network. Scientists saw it first, curious about the data Kate had gathered, then military personnel interested in her defensive tactics, then the general public, amazed that a human was surviving on a Class-9 Deathworld. By the end of the second day, Kate's report had been viewed 1,000,000 times. On Krios 7, Kate was busy. She explored the area around her camp, mapping the terrain. She found a stream, though the water looked strange and smelled acidic. She used the purifier to test it. The machine struggled but eventually produced clean water. She set traps using materials from the crashed pod, simple snares designed to catch small animals. She checked them every few hours. On the third day, she caught something. It looked like a cross between a rabbit and a lizard, about the size of a cat. Kate examined it carefully, checking for poison glands or other dangers. Finding none, she prepared it. She built a fire using dried wood from a fallen tree and cooked the meat. It tasted strange but not bad. Protein was protein. That evening, she sent her second report. Day 3. Food sources identified. Local fauna is edible with proper preparation. Water purification is functional but slow. Camp is secure. Encountered 14 different species so far. Have begun classification system. She included more video, showing her trap system and the cooked meal. She spoke about the psychological aspects of isolation, noting that humans evolved to handle solo survival through problem solving. "Krios 7 is challenging," she said to the camera. "But Earth was challenging too, millions of years ago. Every human alive today is descended from ancestors who survived impossible conditions. This is what we do." The second report caused even more reaction. Thren received messages from other council members, asking questions. Some were angry, claiming Kate was making the tribunal look foolish. Others were genuinely curious. A few suggested they had made a mistake. On the 5th day, a small scout ship entered orbit around Krios 7. The crew had been sent to check on Kate's body, expecting to find her dead. Instead, their sensors detected active life signs and working technology. They opened a communication channel. "This is Galactic Scout Ship Vela. Kate Morrison. Do you read?" Kate was working on expanding her shelter when she heard the transmission. She activated her communication system. "This is Morrison. I read you." "We are prepared to extract you," the scout captain said. "Your punishment can be reduced if you request retrieval now." Kate looked around at her camp. 5 days of work, traps set, water system running, shelter improved. She had barely started. "Negative," she said. "I am conducting valuable research. I do not require extraction at this time." There was a long silence. "You are refusing rescue?" "I am refusing early termination of my research," Kate replied. "If you want to help, I could use additional scientific equipment, specifically better sample containers and a portable analysis kit." Another silence. "We will relay your request." "Thank you," Kate said. Morrison out. 2 weeks after landing on Krios 7, Kate had transformed her crash site into something that could barely be called a camp anymore. It was becoming a settlement. The drop pod still sat in the center of the clearing, but now it was surrounded by a defensive wall made from sharpened stakes and woven metallic bark. She had dug a trench around the perimeter and filled it with thorny vines that she had learned were painful to touch. Nothing could approach her camp without making noise or getting hurt. Inside the walls, Kate had built a workspace. She used fallen trees to create a covered area where she could work during the frequent rainstorms. She had organized her supplies on shelves made from salvaged metal and wood. Everything had a place. The water system was her proudest achievement. She had found 3 more water purifiers in the wreckage of old terraforming equipment scattered around the forest. She connected them in series, creating a system that could process the acidic stream water into something drinkable. She stored the clean water in containers made from hollow sections of the metallic trees. Food was no longer a problem. Kate had mapped the area for 3 kilometers in every direction. She knew where the edible plants grew. She knew which creatures were safe to eat and which were poisonous. Her traps caught small prey regularly. And she had learned to preserve the meat by smoking it over her fire. She had even started a small garden. It was experimental, but some of the local plants seemed to respond well to cultivation. She marked each one with notes on her datapad, tracking growth rates and yields. On the morning of day 15, Kate stood on the wall and looked out at the forest. In the distance, she could see smoke rising from a volcanic vent. Closer, a pack of the 6-legged predators moved through the trees, hunting something. They ignored her camp now. They had learned it was not worth the effort. She climbed down and went to check her traps. The first 3 were empty, but the 4th had caught something new. It looked like a bird, but with 4 wings and scales instead of feathers. Kate examined it carefully, then added it to her collection of samples. Back at camp, she prepared the creature for analysis. She used tools she had made herself from scavenged materials. A knife with a blade forged from metal she had melted down in a crude furnace. A cutting board made from smoothed stone. She worked with the precision of a scientist, separating muscle, organs, and bone. The meat was edible. The organs showed no signs of toxins. She recorded everything in her datapad. Species designation K7B14, she said into the recording. 4-winged aerial hunter. Diet appears to be primarily insects and small ground creatures. Muscle tissue is dense, high protein content, suitable for human consumption. She cooked a small portion and ate it while reviewing her notes. 15 days of data, 37 documented species, 12 edible food sources, 8 types of plants that could be useful, 3 water sources. Kate pulled out the communication array and prepared her next report. She set up the camera on a tripod she had built from branches and recorded herself standing in front of her settlement. The defensive wall was visible behind her. Smoke rose from her cooking fire. Her garden plot was in the frame, showing rows of growing plants. Survival field report, day 15, Kate said. Camp is now self-sufficient for food and water. Defensive perimeter is holding against local predators. I have documented 37 distinct species and mapped a 3-kilometer radius around my position. She turned the camera to show her workspace. I have recovered and repurposed equipment from abandoned terraforming projects. Water purification system is operational. Food storage includes smoked meat and preserved plants. I estimate current supplies could sustain 1 person for 6 months. Kate picked up a knife she had made and showed it to the camera. Tools have been manufactured from local materials. Metal can be extracted from certain rock formations and worked using concentrated solar heat. The metallic trees provide strong structural material when properly processed. She turned the camera back to herself. Psychological state remains stable. Solo survival is challenging but manageable for humans. We evolved to handle isolation through problem-solving and routine. I maintain a regular schedule of work, exploration, and rest. Kate paused, choosing her next words carefully. I want to address the tribunal's stated purpose for this sentence. You sent me here to prove that human methods are inferior. Instead, I am demonstrating that human adaptability is our greatest strength. We do not need perfect conditions. We do not need detailed protocols. We need a problem to solve. She ended the recording and uploaded it to the Galactic network. The report went viral within hours. Scientists from the peaceful Valoran species watched it in their laboratories, taking notes on Kate's techniques. They had never considered that scavenged equipment could be repurposed so effectively. Military officers from the warrior Karathi species watched it in their training centers, studying her defensive setup. They recognized the tactical thinking behind every decision. Civilian populations across dozens of worlds watched it out of simple curiosity. A human surviving alone on a Class-9 Deathworld was unheard of. Many had assumed Kate would be dead by now. On the space station where the tribunal met, Admiral Thren watched the report in his private office. He did not call an emergency session this time. He simply watched. When it ended, he sat in silence for a long time. A message came through from the Karathi Military Command. Request permission to send observers to study human survival methods. Kate Morrison has demonstrated techniques of value to our special forces. Another message came from the Valoran Science Academy. Request access to all data gathered by Kate Morrison on Krios 7. Her research has significant scientific merit. A third message came from the Galactic News Network. Request interview with Kate Morrison. Public interest is extremely high. Thren ignored them all. He was reading through Kate's service record again, looking at it with different eyes. Every incident the tribunal had called reckless looked different now. The mining rescue, the evacuation of a damaged space station, the defense of a colony against raiders. In every case, Kate had saved lives by acting quickly and adapting to changing situations. The tribunal had called it aggression, but maybe it was something else. Maybe it was exactly what Kate claimed it was: human nature. On Krios 7, Kate was working on her next project. She had found the wreckage of an old exploration vehicle about 2 kilometers from her camp. It was mostly destroyed, but the solar panels were still functional. She spent 3 days hauling them back to her settlement. They were heavy, especially in the higher gravity, but she made multiple trips and eventually got them all home. She set them up on a frame she built, angling them toward the sun. Within hours, they were generating power. She connected them to a battery she had salvaged from the drop pod. Now she had electricity. She could run the communication array without draining the pod's reserves. She could power lights at night. She could charge the data pad and other devices. Kate stood back and looked at her work. Power generation, food production, water purification, defensive walls, shelter. In 2 weeks, she had built the foundations of permanent habitation. She activated the communication array and sent a brief message to the Galactic Network. To any species considering Deathworld reclamation projects, Krios 7 is viable for long-term settlement with proper preparation and human-tested techniques. Full documentation available upon request. The message reached thousands of worlds. It started conversations in government chambers, science facilities, and military headquarters. Could Deathworlds be reclaimed? Could planets written off as too dangerous be made useful again? Kate Morrison was proving it was possible. Not everyone was happy about this. In a private chamber on the tribunal station, several judges met in secret. "She is making us look like fools," one of them said. "She is demonstrating capabilities we did not know humans possessed," another replied. "She should have failed," the first one insisted. "Krios 7 kills everything." "How is she thriving there?" "Because she is human," a third judge said quietly. "Because she comes from Earth, which is classified as a Class 10 death world. She is not surviving Krios 7 despite being human. She is surviving because she is human." The judges sat in uncomfortable silence. "What do we do?" one finally asked. "Nothing," Thren said, entering the room. "We wait. 90 days was the sentence. We will see if she completes it." "And if she does?" Thren looked at the screen showing Kate's latest report. "Then we will have learned something important about humanity. Something we should have known before we judged them." Back on Krios 7, night was falling. Kate secured her camp and lit her fire. She had cooked a meal of smoked meat and roasted roots. She ate slowly, watching the forest beyond her walls. The warning came on day 28. Kate was working on her garden when the data pad chimed with an alert. She wiped dirt from her hands and checked the screen. The pod's weather monitoring system was still functional, and it had detected something massive approaching. A storm system, planetary scale, wind speeds over 300 kilometers per hour, electrical activity off the charts. Kate looked up at the sky. It was clear and blue, but in the distance she could see dark clouds building on the horizon. She pulled up the historical data on Creos 7. The planet experienced megastorms every few years, massive weather events that reshaped the landscape. The last one had been 4 years ago. She had 3 days to prepare. Kate immediately began moving supplies. Everything critical went into waterproof containers. Food, medical supplies, tools, the data pad, spare batteries. She wrapped them in emergency blankets and sealed them tight. The surface camp would not survive winds that strong. She needed shelter underground. She had been exploring the cave system near her settlement for the past week. The caves extended deep into the hillside, formed by ancient volcanic activity. They were dry, stable, and most importantly, protected. Kate spent the first day hauling supplies to the caves. She made trip after trip, carrying heavy packs through the forest. The animals seemed to sense something was wrong. The six-legged predators were nowhere to be seen. Even the insects had gone quiet. On the second day, Kate reinforced the cave entrance. She built a wall of stones and sealed the gaps with clay she dug from the stream bed. She left a small opening for air but made sure it could be blocked if needed. Inside the cave, she set up a new camp. She brought her fire pit materials, her cooking equipment, and enough food for a week. She hung lights powered by her solar batteries. The cave became a small home carved into the rock. On the third day, the wind began to pick up. Kate made one last trip to the surface camp to salvage anything she could. She took the solar panels down and brought them into the cave. She grabbed her tools, her weapons, her research notes. As she worked, the sky grew dark. The clouds rolled in like a solid wall, black and churning. Lightning flickered inside them, bright enough to hurt her eyes. Kate took one last look at the settlement she had built, the walls she had constructed, the garden she had planted, the workshop where she had made so many things. Then she ran for the cave. She reached it just as the first drops of rain began to fall. They hit the ground like bullets, hard enough to bruise. Kate sealed the entrance and retreated deep into the cave system. The storm hit an hour later. The sound was like nothing Kate had ever heard. The wind screamed across the landscape, tearing trees from the ground. Rain hammered the hillside. Thunder shook the rocks around her. Kate sat in the deepest part of the cave, listening to the destruction outside. She had her data pad and used it to monitor what she could. The pod's sensors were still transmitting, showing wind speeds that peaked at 350 kilometers per hour. She recorded a message. Day 28. Mega storm has arrived. I am sheltering in a cave system approximately half a kilometer from my surface camp. The camp will likely be destroyed. All critical supplies have been moved underground. Estimated storm duration is 48 to 72 hours. The storm raged for 3 days. Kate used the time to explore deeper into the cave system. She followed tunnels that branched off from the main chamber, marking her path with chalk made from crushed rocks. On the second day, she found something impossible. The tunnel she was following opened into a large chamber. Kate raised her light and saw walls that were too smooth to be natural. She stepped closer and realized they were covered in carvings. The carvings showed figures that looked almost human, but with subtle differences. Longer fingers, larger eyes. They were building cities, farming land, raising families. This was not a natural cave. It was a structure built by someone. Kate moved through the chamber, her heart racing. She found more carvings, more rooms. The structure was huge, extending deep into the hillside. It was ancient, thousands of years old, but preserved by the dry cave environment. She found what looked like a storage room. Inside were objects made of a ceramic-like material. Containers, tools, something that might have been a writing tablet. Kate carefully examined one of the tablets. It was covered in symbols she did not recognize, but the datapad had translation software. She took images and let the program analyze them. The translation was slow, but eventually words began to appear. We called this world home. We shaped it to our needs. We brought life from other stars to make it beautiful. Kate read the translated text with growing excitement. These people, whoever they were, had lived on Krios 7. They had built a civilization here. She found more tablets, more records. The story they told was tragic. The builders called themselves the Kerosians. They had terraformed Krios 7 over generations, turning it into a paradise. But they had made a mistake. They brought in aggressive species from other worlds for diversity, thinking they could control them. They could not. Within 2 generations, the introduced species had multiplied beyond control. They outcompeted the native life. They became more aggressive, more dangerous. The Kerosians tried to fix the problem, but it was too late. The planet spiraled into chaos. What had been a garden became a death world. The Kerosians abandoned it, fleeing to other worlds. They left everything behind. Kate sat in the ancient chamber, surrounded by the remnants of a dead civilization, and understood. Krios 7 had not always been deadly. It had been made deadly by mistakes, by poor planning, by not understanding the consequences of their actions. But that meant it could be fixed. She spent the rest of the storm documenting everything. She took images of every carving, every tablet, every room. She recorded video of the entire structure. She translated as much text as the datapad could handle. On the 4th day, the storm finally passed. Kate emerged from the cave into a transformed landscape. Trees had been ripped up. The ground was scoured clean. Her surface camp was gone, reduced to scattered debris, but she was alive. Her supplies were safe. And she had made a discovery that would change everything. Kate stood in the ruins of her settlement and activated the communication array. The pod's transmitter had survived, still operational despite the damage. She uploaded everything: the images of the Kerosian ruins, the translated texts, the history of how Krios 7 had fallen. Then she recorded a message. Survival Field Report Day 31. I have survived the megastorm. During the event, I discovered extensive ruins of an ancient civilization that previously inhabited Krios 7. The Kerosians terraformed this world but made critical errors that transformed it into a death world. Kate held up one of the tablets. This is not a natural death world. This is a failed terraforming project. The Kerosians introduced aggressive species without proper ecological controls. The planet degraded over 2 generations. She turned the camera to show the destroyed landscape. This means Krios 7 can be reclaimed. With proper understanding of the ecosystem and gradual intervention, this world could be made habitable again. The Kerosians' mistake was impatience and lack of control. Humans have experience managing aggressive ecosystems. Earth taught us these lessons. Kate looked directly into the camera. I am submitting a formal proposal for a long-term research station on Krios 7. This planet has archaeological, historical, and practical value. I request support to continue this work. She ended the transmission and sat down on a rock, exhausted. The report reached the Galactic Network within hours. This time, the reaction was immediate and massive. Archaeological societies across the galaxy demanded access to the Kerosian ruins. Historians wanted to study the texts. Scientists wanted to understand how the terraforming had failed. The Valoran Science Academy sent an official request to the tribunal. Kate Morrison has made a discovery of significant historical importance. We request permission to send a research team to Krios 7 to assist her work. The Karathi military sent a different message. Human Morrison has demonstrated that Deathworlds can be analyzed and potentially reclaimed. We request consultation on similar projects. On the tribunal station, Admiral Thren sat in his office and watched Kate's report for the third time. He looked at the ancient ruins, the translated texts, the calm, professional manner in which Kate presented her findings. She had been sentenced to Krios 7 as punishment. She had been expected to fail, to call for rescue, to prove that human methods were reckless and dangerous. Instead, she had survived a megastorm that had killed every previous expedition. She had discovered ruins that had gone unnoticed for thousands of years. She had proposed a solution to reclaim a planet that had been written off as hopeless. Thren activated his communication panel and called for an emergency tribunal session. The judges gathered in the main chamber. Thren displayed Kate's report on the central screens. 31 days, he said. Kate Morrison has been on Krios 7 for 31 days. She has not only survived, she has made discoveries that will impact galactic science and policy. She got lucky, one judge said weakly. Luck does not build settlements, Thren replied. Luck does not find ancient ruins. Luck does not survive storms that killed trained explorers. He looked around at the other judges. We made a mistake. We judged humans based on fear rather than understanding. We saw aggression where we should have seen adaptability. We saw recklessness where we should have seen courage. What are you suggesting? Another judge asked. I am suggesting we end this farce, Thren said. Kate Morrison has served her sentence and proven her point. We should offer her full reinstatement and a formal apology. The chamber fell silent. Several judges looked uncomfortable. Others looked thoughtful. Finally, one of them spoke. If we do this, we are admitting we were wrong about humans. We were wrong about humans, Thren said simply. Better to admit it now than continue making the same mistake. The vote was called. It was not unanimous, but it passed. Kate Morrison would be offered her freedom and her rank. The tribunal would issue a formal statement acknowledging the value of human capabilities. 4 months after Kate Morrison landed on Krios 7, the planet looked different in one small corner. The settlement had grown beyond anything the tribunal could have imagined. Kate had rebuilt after the storm, but this time she built better. The new camp was partially underground, using the cave system as a foundation. Above ground, she had constructed 3 separate buildings using stone, processed wood, and salvaged metal. The main structure was her living quarters and workshop. It had proper walls, a roof that could handle storms, and windows made from transparent panels she had found in old terraforming equipment. Inside, she had a bed, a work table, storage shelves, and her communication station. The second building was for food storage and processing. She had smoking racks for meat, drying racks for plants, and sealed containers for long-term supplies. Her garden had expanded to cover a plot of land 30 meters across, with rows of native plants she had learned to cultivate. The third building was her research station. This was where she studied samples, documented species, and analyzed data. The walls were covered with charts and notes. Specimens were preserved in jars. The Corrosian tablets were carefully stored and cataloged. The defensive wall had been rebuilt stronger than before, with a proper gate and a watchtower. Kate had even started domesticating some of the smaller creatures. 3 of the rabbit-sized lizards lived in a pen near her garden. They were skittish, but had learned she provided food and safety. On the morning of day 120, Kate was working in her garden when the communication array activated. This is Galactic Diplomatic Vessel Harmony requesting permission to land near your settlement. Kate stood up, brushing dirt from her hands. She had been expecting this. Her 90-day sentence had ended a month ago, and she had ignored all requests for updates on her plans. Permission granted, she said. Land in the clearing 200 meters east of my position. The ground is stable there. An hour later, a sleek ship descended from the sky. It was much larger than her drop pod had been, with proper landing gear and diplomatic markings. Kate watched from her watchtower as it touched down. A ramp extended and 6 figures emerged. 5 were aliens from different species. The 6th was human. Kate recognized the human immediately, Captain Greg Holland, her old commanding officer, except he was not a captain anymore. The insignia on his uniform showed admiral's rank. She climbed down from the watchtower and walked to the gate to meet them. The lead alien was tall and elegant, with silver skin and 3 eyes. She introduced herself as Ambassador Lissa from the Karathi Diplomatic Corps. "Lieutenant Commander Morrison," Lissa said formally, "we have come to discuss the resolution of your sentence." Kate looked at Greg and saw him smile slightly. She turned back to Lissa. "Please, come to my settlement. We can talk there." She led them through the gate, and the delegation stopped in surprise. They had expected a survival camp, not a working settlement. They stared at the buildings, the garden, the defensive walls. "You have built extensively," Lissa said. "I have been here for 4 months," Kate replied. "I used the time productively." They walked to the main building, and Kate offered them seats on benches she had made. She served them water from her purification system and fruit from her garden. Lissa composed herself and began the formal speech she had prepared. "Kate Morrison, the Galactic Tribunal Council has reviewed your case. They acknowledge that your sentence was based on incomplete understanding of human capabilities. They are prepared to offer you a full pardon, immediate restoration of your rank, and a formal apology." Kate nodded slowly. "Go on." "In addition, we are offering you command of a new division within the Galactic Fleet, the Deathworld Reclamation Program. You would lead teams to assess planets previously considered uninhabitable and determine if they can be recovered." Greg spoke up. "It is a huge opportunity, Kate. You would have resources, personnel, and full authority." Kate looked at him. "You are an admiral now." "I am," Greg said. "They promoted me to oversee human integration into the fleet. Your success here changed a lot of minds about our people." Kate turned back to Lissa. "Those are generous offers. But I have conditions." Lissa blinked her 3 eyes in surprise. "You wish to negotiate?" "I wish to ensure this does not happen again," Kate said firmly. "First, I want the original charges against me formally dismissed. Not pardoned, dismissed. What I did at that mining colony was the right decision, and the record should reflect that." Lissa hesitated, then nodded. "Agreed." "Second, I want full funding for a permanent research station here on Creo 7, not a temporary camp. A real facility with proper equipment and support staff." "Also agreed," Lissa said. "Third, I want humans officially recognized as specialists in high-risk environments and survival situations. No more punishment postings, no more assumptions that our methods are primitive or dangerous. The tribunal is prepared to acknowledge human expertise in these areas," Lissa confirmed. Kate looked at Greg. "Fourth, I want Admiral Holland given full authority over all human personnel assignments in the Galactic Fleet. No human should be judged by species bias again." Greg nodded gratefully. Kate stood and walked to the window, looking out at the forest. "There is one more thing. I am not leaving Creo 7 immediately." The delegation stirred. Lissa leaned forward. "You wish to remain here?" "I have 6 more months of research planned," Kate said. "The Kyrosian ruins have only been partially explored. The ecosystem still holds secrets. I started something here, and I want to finish it properly." "You would delay your new position to stay on a death world?" one of the other delegates asked, clearly confused. Kate turned back to them. "This is not just a death world anymore. This is a project. I have proven it can be done. Now I want to document exactly how it should be done, so others can replicate my methods." Lissa considered this. "What if we brought a team here to help?" Other scientists, researchers who want to learn from you? Kate smiled. That would be acceptable. I can train them in human survival techniques, show them how we approach these problems. That would actually be valuable. Then we have an agreement, Lisa said, standing and offering her hand in the human custom. You will stay for 6 more months with full support. A research team will join you. After that, you will take command of the Deathworld Reclamation Program. Kate shook her hand. Agreed. Greg approached her after the formal negotiations ended. You really want to stay here? You could be on a comfortable station right now? Kate laughed. I built this place from nothing. I am not going to abandon it just when it is getting interesting. Besides, someone needs to make sure the next people who come here do not make the Corosians' mistakes. You have changed things, Kate, Greg said quietly. Not just for you, for all of us. Humans are being taken seriously now. We have opportunities we did not have before. Good, Kate said. That is what I wanted. Not for me. For everyone who comes after. That evening, after the delegation had left, Kate sat at her communication station and prepared her final official survival field report. She looked into the camera and spoke calmly. This is Lieutenant Commander Kate Morrison, Day 120 on Krios 7. I am concluding my formal survival reports as my sentence has been completed and my situation has changed from punishment to research assignment. She paused, gathering her thoughts. I want to thank someone who made a difference. Quilvin, the cargo handler who gave me extra supplies when I was dropped here. Your kindness mattered. Because of you, I had tools that helped me survive those first critical days. You are a hero, and I hope your people know that. Kate stood and walked to show her settlement. I also want to address what this experience has demonstrated. You can drop a human anywhere, in any conditions, and we will not just survive. We will understand, adapt, and build. This is not because we are violent or aggressive. This is because we come from Earth, a world that tested us for millions of years. We carry those lessons in our genes. She turned the camera to the forest beyond her walls. Krios 7 is not hopeless. It is a challenge. Every death world is a challenge, not a death sentence. With the right approach, with patience and understanding, these worlds can be reclaimed. They can become valuable again. Kate looked back at the camera. This is not a threat to other species. This is an invitation. Humans want to work with you, learn from you, and share what we know. We are good at surviving impossible situations. Let us use that skill to help everyone. She ended the recording and transmitted it to the Galactic Network. The report was viewed billions of times across hundreds of worlds. It became required viewing at military academies, exploration schools, and diplomatic training programs. Kate Morrison became famous, but she did not pay much attention to that. She was too busy working. 6 months later, the research station on Krios 7 was fully operational. A team of scientists from 12 different species worked alongside Kate, learning human survival methods and studying the planet's ecology. Kate taught them how to read the environment, how to predict predator behavior, how to find resources in hostile conditions. She showed them the Corosian ruins and explained what the ancient civilization had done wrong. They tried to force the planet to be what they wanted, she explained to a class of young researchers. They did not work with the existing ecosystem. They did not respect the balance. We have to be smarter than that. One of the students, a young Velaran, raised his hand. Is that why humans are good at this? Because you learn to work with nature instead of against it? Kate smiled. Exactly. Earth was harsh, but it taught us to adapt. That is the lesson you need to learn here. After the 6-month research period ended, Kate finally left Krios 7, but she did not abandon it. The station remained operational, with rotating staff continuing the work she had started. She took command of the Deathworld Reclamation Program and began identifying other planets that had been written off. One by one, her teams assessed them, applied human survival methods, and demonstrated that many could be recovered. Admiral Greg Holland, working from a command station in orbit around Earth, ensured that humans throughout the galactic fleet were respected and valued. No more punishment postings. No more species bias. The Galactic Council quietly reclassified Cryo-7 from a dumping ground to an active research colony. Property values in the system increased as the planet showed potential for eventual colonization. 2 years after Kate's original sentence, she returned to Cryo-7 for a ceremony. The planet had been officially reopened for limited settlement. A small colony was being established near her original camp. Ambassador Lisa presided over the event. This world was considered dead. Lieutenant Commander Kate Morrison proved it was only sleeping. Today, we honor her achievement and acknowledge the valuable contributions humans bring to our galactic community. Kate accepted the Galactic Medal of Persistence, an honor rarely given to anyone. She was only the 4th recipient in galactic history and the first human. During her acceptance speech, she kept it simple. Humans are survivors. We solve problems. We build things. We do not give up. I hope that going forward, these qualities will be seen as assets, not threats. We are happy to share what we know with anyone who wants to learn. After the ceremony, Kate walked through the settlement that had grown around her original camp. Humans and aliens worked side by side, building homes and research facilities. The defensive walls were gone, replaced by proper streets and parks. She visited the Kyrosian ruins, now a protected archaeological site. Students from across the galaxy came here to study the ancient civilization and learn from their mistakes. Kate stood at the entrance to the caves and remembered her first days here. The fear, the uncertainty, the determination to prove everyone wrong. She had been sent here as punishment. They expected her to fail, to break, to admit defeat. Instead, she had built something lasting, not just a settlement, not just a research station. She had built proof that humans belonged in the stars, that Earth's harsh lessons had prepared them for anything the galaxy could throw at them. Quilvin, the cargo handler who had helped her, received a medal of his own for assisting Kate. His people celebrated him as a hero, and his small act of kindness became a story told across the galaxy. Admiral Thren, the judge who had sentenced Kate, retired quietly. He never publicly apologized, but he recommended that the tribunal create new guidelines for evaluating human personnel. His final report acknowledged that the tribunal had failed to understand a species that thought differently than they did. Kate Morrison's survival field reports became legendary. They were studied, analyzed, and used as templates for teaching adaptive thinking. Her methods were copied by explorers, soldiers, and scientists from dozens of species. But Kate herself remained focused on the work. She had other death worlds to assess, other impossible places to prove were possible, because that was what humans did. They survived, they adapted, they built, and they never, ever gave up. On Cryo-7, Kate did not know any of this yet. She was busy clearing debris from the storm, salvaging what she could and planning how to rebuild. She looked at the cave entrance where the Kyrosian ruins waited. There was so much more to explore, so much more to learn. The tribunal thought they were offering her freedom. But Kate was already free. She was doing exactly what she wanted to do, proving that humans belonged in the galaxy, not as subordinates, not as dangerous primitives, but as equals with unique and valuable skills. The storm had destroyed her camp, but it had given her something more important: evidence that death worlds could be tamed, proof that human persistence could unlock secrets others had missed. Kate smiled and got back to work. The bioluminescent insects were dancing through the air. Somewhere in the distance, an apex hunter roared. The metallic trees glowed with their soft blue light. It was beautiful, in a deadly sort of way. Kate finished her meal and cleaned her dishes. She made her rounds of the perimeter, checking the walls and traps. Everything was secure. She climbed onto the roof of her shelter, a platform she had built from wooden beams, and looked up at the stars. 2 moons hung in the sky, both larger than Earth's moon. Somewhere up there, people were watching her. Some wanted her to fail, some wanted her to succeed. Most were just curious. Kate did not care what they wanted. She was here, doing what humans had always done, surviving, adapting, building. She climbed down and went inside her shelter. She had a lot of work to do tomorrow. She went back to work, reinforcing the walls of her shelter with woven branches and metallic bark. In orbit, the scout crew stared at their instruments in disbelief. "She is not just surviving," the captain said slowly. "She is thriving." The scout ship's report reached the tribunal the next day. It included sensor data showing Kate's camp, her daily routine, and her refusal of rescue. Admiral Thren read it 3 times. Kate Morrison had been on Creo 7 for 5 days. She should have activated her distress beacon within 72 hours. Instead, she was building a permanent settlement and asking for research equipment. Thren realized something uncomfortable. The tribunal had not punished Kate Morrison. They had given her an opportunity to prove everything she had claimed about humans, and she was succeeding. Screeches, and something that sounded like grinding metal. Kate reached back into the pod and pulled out the survival kit. She found the hidden compartment Quilvin had mentioned and pulled out the extra supplies. The datapad was there, just as he had said. She activated it and began recording. "Day 1 on Creo 7, she said calmly. "I have landed in a forested region. Initial assessment shows hostile environment but breathable atmosphere. Gravity approximately 1.3 times Earth standard. Proceeding with standard survival protocols." She looked around at the alien landscape and felt something she had not expected. Not fear, determination. "Let's see what you've got," she said to the forest.